Hey, what's up guys? I'm Steve Wells and today we are going to be talking about my newest trail shoe that I've been doing most of my trail runs in lately, and that is the Altra Timp 2. So this is one of Altra's kind of medium to high cushion trail running shoes. They have a shoe below this when it comes to cushioning, that's the Lone Peak. Another shoe above this, that is the Olympus. So this kind of sits in between those two. This one is not kind of as technical of a trail shoe, a little bit more of a road to trail shoe. So if you look at the bottom, it doesn't have super aggressive lugs on it. If you look at the bottom of the Lone Peak, much more aggressive lugs on there. And that's because the Lone Peak is kind of a more specific trail shoe. The Timp is kind of supposed to be like you go out the front door, you run to the trail, you get on the trail, you run home, or maybe you have to get on some bike paths or something like that before you get to the real trail. So you're going to be comfortable on kind of different surfaces in the Timp. So as always for Altra, the Timp is 0 drops, so same amount of cushioning under the ball of your foot as your heel. It also has foot-shaped toe box, so going to be nice and wide for your toes to splay out in the end. So just to be clear, especially when it comes to the Timp, this is not a wide shoe. So when you look at the toe box, you think that it would be a super wide shoe. But in reality, when it comes to the midfoot and through the ball of your foot, it's actually, especially in this shoe, going to be relatively narrow, but then gives you more room out in the toe box where you need it. So I'm not going to list off all of the specs in this video because you don't need to listen to me listing off a bunch of numbers, but I'll have them down in the description so you can check down there if you want a little bit more specific information about the shoe. But let's check out the weight of it in my size, 11.5, and this does have a little bit of mud and other things stuck to the bottom right now, but looking like 12.7 ounces. So if we compare that to the Lone Peak here, 10.9, so definitely going to be a little bit heavier in the Timp than in the Lone Peak, but that's still lighter than the New Balance Hierro, which I have a video about up here if you want to check that out. So when it comes to a higher cushion trail shoe, is not going to be super heavy, but if you're comparing it to some of the lower cushion trail shoes or road shoes, is going to be a little bit heavier maybe than you're used to. Really quick before I get into the pros of the Timp, I just launched my Patreon account. The link to that will be down in the description if you wanted to check that out and help keep me doing what I'm doing. So moving into the pros about this shoe, my first pro is going to be the cushioning. In my opinion, it's a good amount of cushioning for a higher cushion trail shoe. So if you compare it to the Lone Peak, I on longer runs was kind of wishing I had a little bit more protection under my feet from rocks and roots and that kind of thing. But at the same time, when I was in the Hierro, I felt like it was too much cushion and that I was just walking along on a marshmallow. So I think the Timp is kind of a good balance between having some protection under your foot, helping absorb some shock, but not carrying around a mattress with you. So if you've seen any of my Altra reviews in the past, which I have a number of if you want to check out my channel, I do like their wider toe box as well as the 0 drop platform. It's going to be a little bit healthier for your feet, especially on trail shoes. I feel like I get a little bit more balance being able to engage those toes a little bit better in that wider toe box when I'm going on a little bit more technical terrain. My next pro is going to be something I don't know if I've talked about before. I don't know if I've done a Altra trail shoe before, but that is the gator trap system that they have on their shoes. So they have a little bit of a loop up in the front there and a Velcro piece back here on the back. So if you're putting a gaiter on this shoe, you don't have to put the hook around the laces or whatever. You have a secure fit when it comes to your gaiter, so you're not going to be getting all kinds of sand and crap in your shoes. My next pro is the lugs on the bottom. So since this is kind of that road to trail shoe, I don't find myself a lot of times on super technical trails where I live, and I do sometimes find myself on bike paths and road sections to get to trails or to get from section of trail to section of trail, especially living in a city. So this shoe being comfortable when you're on pavement as well as when you're on the trail is a big plus for me. And my last pro is not going to be a universal pro, but this shoe fits my feet very well. So it does not have a lot of volume from top to bottom, and it is relatively narrow, like through the ball of your foot, but then gives you more room in the toe box. Fits my heel very well, and that is going to change from person to person, which we'll probably talk about a little bit in the cons when we get down there. But for me, it's a really good fit, especially coming from the Timp 1.5, which had way too much volume, just way too much room in general to fit my feet. Now, getting into some pros, if you like the Timp 1.5, you probably may not like the fit of the Timp 2. So like I was saying, not a lot of volume from top to bottom. Even with the lower instep that I have, it really did feel tight on the top of my feet whenever I first put them on. It felt like I didn't have enough room on top. I didn't have enough width. Once I started wearing them a little bit more and kind of broke in that upper a little bit, it did start feeling a lot more comfortable though. But if you have a super high instep, high volume foot, this probably won't be the shoe for you. Good news is, from what I've heard, the Timp 2.5 will be a little bit more similar when it comes to fit to the Timp 1.5. So maybe if you're loving the 1.5, wait a little while and see what the 2.5 is like. Other than that, my only other con with this shoe is I think it's just the rubber compound on the bottom here. A lot of times if you're on kind of an icy surface, or maybe like a bridge that has a little moss and is also wet, or stepping on a wet root or rock or something like that, tend to slip a little bit. So you definitely do have to be aware of that when you're wearing this shoe, and kind of be careful when you're going on kind of smoother, slippery surfaces. So will I continue wearing the Timp 2.0? Yes, I believe I will. So out of the trail shoes that I have, this is one of, if not my favorite trail running shoe. I've been wearing it for most of my trail runs to get more mileage in to do a review, but also because I just really enjoy wearing them. I would recommend, if you're looking at this shoe, as I do with all shoes, that you try them on first, but especially with this shoe, with kind of the fit issues that I foresee some people having with it, because it is very different than the 1.5. If you love the 1.5, still would probably recommend trying this shoe on before purchasing it. This shoe would be awesome for anyone looking for a little bit more cushioned of a trail shoe. Like I was saying, if you're doing like road to trail stuff, if you're hiking, and I'll even a lot of times wear it for walking the dog, just because it's comfortable on the sidewalk, it's comfortable in the mud at the dog park, wherever I want to go. It just works well for it. I hope this review of the Timp 2.0 has been helpful. If it was, be sure to like and subscribe down below. Maybe check out my Patreon page if you feel like it. Leave any questions you've got in the comments, and I will talk to you guys next week.